Steve Bryan.
Mr Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. I've had hundreds of contacts from constituents concerned about the changes being made to our aid programme. Not all of them agree with me, many do, and my judgment is that the people I represent, like their MP, are really proud of the support that we give around the world. But we should be honest. Yesterday's amendment that led to today's debate was far from perfect. It wouldn't have restored all of the projects that we've heard about today. We are still spending £10 billion this year, as the Minister rightly said, and we have seen the biggest drop in economic output for 300 years. But in spite of all of that, so does this therefore matter? Does the 0.7 to 0.5% cut matter? Have we rather pompously overblown our world-leading reputation in this area? My answer to those two questions, Mr Deputy Speaker, is yes, it does matter, and no, I don't think we have. I have held the International Health Brief at the Department of Health. I have attended G7 and G20 meetings, not at the level of my former neighbour, the former Prime Minister and the former Secretaries of State that we've heard from, but I have been in the room. And I hear the talk that it damages our reputation around the world, and maybe some think that's overblown, maybe some think that's part of our pompous overblowing of this issue. But it does matter. I have seen that in the room, and it does matter what the UK does, and countries do follow us. And we are in a position to ask them to do so because of our deeds. I've also seen much of the good work that we do. HIV is one of the many examples. And I know about, and I'm particularly worried about. It's why an open letter today from a wide group of organisations working in this field, plus Lord Fowler, who knows a thing or two, fears these reductions risk, the letter says, setting the stage for a resurgence of the AIDS pandemic. And it sits at such odds, Mr Deputy Speaker, with the domestic progress that we've made in HIV and the HIV Commission that I was proud to be part of and the recommendations that made to ending new HIV transmissions by 2030. It's tragic, Mr Speaker, what's going to happen around the world with the HIV reduction programmes. I'll give way.
Thank the honourable member for giving way. He's making an important point about HIV/AIDS. The fact that it has been cut by 80% because of this decision is kicking the can further down the road and making it a bigger problem in the future. This jeopardises everything that we have worked for. Does he agree with that?
Yes, and frankly, it doesn't really matter whether I do or not, but the organisations working in this field, dozens of them, have written an open letter in the Telegraph today setting out why and how this matters, and I'm really worried about it. Mr Deputy Speaker, I think back to my early days in this House. One of the first things that I did in Winchester that I'm so proud to represent was held a session with the former Minister, Stephen O'Brien, who was a very good international development minister. Ask the Minister, it was called. It was in St Paul's Church in Winchester, and we had dozens of constituents who came to that meeting to listen to that manifesto commitment that we'd made in 2010 and the way that we were going to then legislate for this. So for me, this is not just a manifesto commitment made then and made since and made in 2019. It's a personal commitment, and it's one that I want to stand by. I know that to meet it, we have to make choices, but it was a choice to make the pledge in the first place, and it's a political choice to keep it or not now. Abandoning June the 21st, Mr Deputy Speaker, as we may do next week, that's also a choice which will have a price tag attached to it. Maybe there's a correlation there. And finally, an example from my own Winchester constituency that really saddens me is actually rather personal given the global health budget that I used to hold. For many years, Hampshire Hospitals, which runs my local hospital and the University of Winchester, have obtained funding and used that to provide support for overseas projects such as stroke services in West Africa, paediatric maternity surgery and anaesthetic care in several East African countries. And that's been funded through something called the THET, the Tropical Health and Educational Trust, which receives money through something called the UK Partnerships for Health Systems. That's had its programme cut from 2020 through 2024 as a result of this reduction. So it's not just a one-year hit, Mr Deputy Speaker, which some say, and they are devastated about the work they're not now going to be able to do. Let me just close by saying this. If anybody on that side of the House or any side of the House, friend or foe of mine, or any of my colleagues speaking against this today, think that we enjoy this and that we are somehow enjoying giving the government a hard time, we do not. you know, I'm here to say what I think, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the people that I represent, and I think this is wrong. Even now, even at this late stage, let's not do this. As I always say to constituents who disagree with me on this subject, and there will be many, charity does indeed begin at home. It just doesn't end there.
Quite right. Yes. Yeah.